and right, Anita Vig and Maggie Roberson. The agenda for today should be with you now. Once we've got through this attendance and apologies, we'll be handing over to Liz Hancock, who is the chair of Health Watch Warwickshire, for her annual report, which will build on the report that was circulated earlier on this year. We'll then have a finance report from our chair of finance and audit, Mike Flaxman, who's on the call. Once Mike has finished, we will deal with the appointment of auditors and then any other business. And there will be an opportunity at the end of the meeting to ask any questions or to make any observations that anybody in the meeting might want to make. So I hope that all seems reasonably clear. And with that, I think I'll hand over to you, Chair.
Thank you, Chris, and welcome everybody. I'm delighted to once again, as Chair of Health Watch Warwickshire, present to you our annual report, which can best be described as a year of great change. However, it is with sadness that I start with news that our previous chair, Robin Wensley, recently died. Robin acted as chair from November 16 to December 18 and left us due to challenges with his health. Our thoughts are obviously with him, with his family at this difficult time. This year, we've experienced several staff changes. Claire Jackson leaving to work for the Scottish Government, Lucy Dean heading back to engineering and work for HS2, Poonam Thompson, who now works for Warwickshire County Council, and Isabel Jones, who we hope is enjoying her retirement. However, I'm delighted that 3 new members of staff have joined us over the year. And in our engagement and outreach team, Carla Searle, who is taking the lead in the north of the county, and Caroline Graham, who leads in the south, and our finance assistant, Leslie Miller. It's been a difficult year for everyone, but our small team of staff and volunteers have continued to work hard to be an accessible, trusted, independent source of advice, listening and responding effectively so that they can express the voice of local people on health and social care issues. A couple of weeks ago, we held a strategy day for board, staff and volunteers, and the emerging themes from that day were maternity services, young people, and the need to avoid and reduce assumptions and bias. Next week, we're holding a board development event to ensure that as a board, we continue to effectively support the work of Health Watch Warwickshire and the team. As you know, the ICS, the Integrated Care System, formally started on the 1st of July. Health Watch Warwickshire seeks to engage with the Coventry and Warwickshire ICS to ensure the patient voice is heard at all levels, that's system, county, place and neighbourhood. Currently, we have secured non-voting places on the Integrated Care Board, the Integrated Care Partnership and the Care Collaborative Executive. We're also negotiating with the Mental Health, Learning Difficulties and Autism Care Collaborative to join on a similar basis. We have joined the place executives in Warwickshire North, South Warwickshire and Rugby, and are also on the place delivery groups for all 3 areas. We are pleased to also work with the Health and Wellbeing Board, the Coventry and Warwickshire Health and Wellbeing Forum, the Health Overview and Scrutiny Committee, the Warwickshire Ageing Well Committee, Safeguarding Partnership, and the GP Task and Finish Group for Warwickshire County Council. We continue to work closely with Health Watch Coventry, Health Watch England, including giving leadership to the combined East and West Midlands Health Watch Group, University of Warwick, Warwick Medical School, West Midlands Applied Research Collaborative, Newton County Councillors Network, and West Midlands Combined Authority, the Mental Health Commission. I hope you can see from this that we strive to represent Warwickshire people across several different platforms. Our annual report for April 21 to March 22, which was, as Chris said, distributed earlier this year and is available on our website, highlights that 1,410 people shared their experiences of health and social care services with us. And during the year, we published 10 reports, all of which are available to view on our website. Our most recent performance report for May 22 to July shows that we engaged with 2,571 people, which is a 24% increase on the previous quarter. We received 73 information feedback contacts. Telephone inquiries increased from 47 to 52%. We signpost 52 inquiries to other organisations. Feedback on hospitals and GPs continues to be a subject that is mentioned the most, and feedback from the under 35-year-olds rose by a further 14%. Our most recent surveys are the dental survey, which closed this month. An analysis of the 264 responses is ongoing, and the LGBTQ+ survey is ongoing until the end of November and can be accessed via our website. Alongside Healthwatch England, we will also be part of a national survey to better understand what is working and what needs improving for people who develop mental health difficulties relating to their maternity experience. There'll be more information regarding the survey soon. Following guidelines and advice from the Care Quality Commission, CQC, and Healthwatch England, we're looking to refresh and relaunch our enter and view activities, which was obviously stalled during the height of the pandemic, and colleague training on this starts next month. I'm very proud of the impact our small team of staff and volunteers, including my fellow board members, continue to make. I would like to thank them all, those past and present, for the role they play. Thank you. So as Chris said, there will be an opportunity for any questions at the end, but at the moment, I'm actually very pleased to hand over to Mike Flaxman for the financial report. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the least interesting part of the annual general meeting. It's the least interesting, but absolutely necessary, unfortunately. Just on a personal point, as well as being a board director of Healthwatch, I'm also on the South Warwickshire Patient Engagement Forum with David Johnson, and I'm also a public governor for the South Warwickshire University Foundation Trust, which is an interesting time. It involves reading many pages of paperwork, but there you go. It's one of these things we do. Just as before I launch into the report that was put on the website, which I'm sure you've all read in great detail, we did appoint new auditors during this year. The previous ones having been with us for about 8 years, we decided it was time for a change. We had an unqualified audit report on the 21-22 accounts, which we were very delighted with. And the other thing I need to do is welcome Leslie Miller to the team, who is our bookkeeper, accounting sort of officer. And I really do appreciate the input that she's making to the team, because it's been incredibly useful to have a really qualified bookkeeper doing the accounts, or the background accounts anyway. It's been very useful. Just to launch into my report then, as you all probably know, to carry out the work we do, we're funded by the Warwickshire County Council. As an aside, not quite enough. We'd like some more, thank you very much. Following our successful tender in 2018, we got a 3-year fixed sum contract at £217,000 a year, increased to 221,340 in 21-22. All this is reflected in the audited outturn in the annual report. Our contract now runs until October 23, as it was extended for a further 2 years. Retrospective inflation funding for this current year, only 3%, has been provided by the County Council, and we're in negotiations for a further uplift for the final year of our contract. We're hoping it will be somewhere near inflation, but I have my doubts. We expect the service to be retendered early in 2023 and commence in November 2023, subject to County Council decisions on tendering periods. They might change it so it starts in April, say, and reflects our financial year instead of the original contract year. In financial year 22, we received 16,500 additional income from other sources. we got this through the very hard work by our Chief Executive, Chris, and the other staff, who managed to get us contracts, particularly with South Warwickshire Foundation Trust, to do work around the Shipston hospital reconfiguration, and some work on the carers discharge project, which is published on the website and is being seen as a very, very successful and detailed piece of work that's being done. And I know that Swift are taking it into account when they're looking at their quality improvements for the coming year. And I think the way Swift works is that successful discharges are the secret to keeping the place running, and that our carers report points to a lot of things that could be done to improve that situation. So I'm straying into service stuff here. That's a bit interesting, isn't it? As I say, we've had very good success in terms of our project work, and for the year, last year, we underspent by just about £5,000, which is being carried forward. Going forward, we funded all of the posts in our new organisational structure, which I'm very pleased with. We will continue to use our reserves in 22-23 and going on to fund priority projects and surveys, and look forward to a successful tendering process for the Healthwatch Warwickshire contract to come. That's me done. Thank you. Chris, I think you're on mute.
Sorry about that. I had trouble unmuting myself. Thanks, Mike. That was a comprehensive report. If there are any questions to Mike, we'll pick those up at the end if that's all right. The next item on the agenda is the appointment of auditors. I have written to Michael Harwood, who are content to be proposed and seconded. So is anyone willing to propose Michael Harwood and Company as our auditors?
Yes, can do that. Proposed by me.
Thank you, Mike. A seconder?
Geeta and I both have hands up for seconding.
All right. Well, you're not on my screen, unfortunately. Well, thank you for that. Is everybody content then that Michael Harwood and Company should continue to be our auditors? I think they've done a good job this year.
Yeah, very pleased with them.
Great stuff.
Yeah,
thank you very much. So that takes us on to any other business and any questions that people might have, either in terms of the annual reports, the finances, or anything else that's on people's minds. This is the opportunity now.
I come in, Chris. I can't find my hand, so on this I'm on a different computer. So it's Judy Fowler.
Right. Hi, Judy.
Hi. A question and a compliment. Question is how much reserves? It's for Mike. How much reserves do you have to keep? Is it 3 months, 6 months? It might be in the report, but I haven't got the report up at the moment. So,
right. Could you repeat the question?
Yeah. How much reserves do you have to keep? Is it 3 months, 6 months? Normally, most organisations have 3 6 month reserve amount.
We're not required by anything to keep a reserve level,
Yeah.
but we have, throughout our existence, managed to retain a reserve to deal with the issue of our close down, should that happen, because obviously there will be redundancy costs and things to run out. So we've always kept a reserve to do that. And I would say that the balance of our reserve would probably cover us for about 4 or 5 months.
Yeah, that's fine, because most organisations these days have to, because of the uncertainty of funding. So
we try to be prudent.
Yeah.
We keep an eye on what we buy, and we buy things as reasonably priced as we possibly can.
Yes.
Good question. Thank you.
I'm married to an accountant. You can tell, can't you? So,
Oh, so am I.
yeah. So you can tell. We don't talk accounts at bedtime, so that's fine. Or politics. The other is a compliment, really. And I was at a meeting with Chris where we were dealing with all this high level strategy, as we tend to, don't we, Chris, at these meetings. Yeah. And then we had the Healthwatch report. And I actually said, this is right that we're doing Healthwatch report at the same meeting, because it makes us realise who we're actually doing all this strategy for, bring it down to the level of our residents. I'm very keen, when we're talking strategy, that we actually think who we're doing it for, because you can get very high level and you're not actually doing it for the people you should be doing it, which is the residents. So it's a compliment. Well done, because you are on so many health boards. At least you bring the voice of the people, along with councillors, of course.
Of course.
Of course, but we do sometimes get into too much strategy land and forget what we're doing it for. So that's a compliment from me.
Thank you, Judy. I mean, the only reason we can bring the voice is because of the hard work of Healthwatch staff and volunteers in finding out what people are saying, and we can then tell you what it is. So it works pretty well as a team. David.
Thanks, Chris. Follow up on Judy's compliment. I think particularly bearing in mind the rotation of staff that you've had over recent months, I think Healthwatch, you and your team have done a fantastic job across a number of topics, and you've kept the show on the road very well despite those difficulties. Also, on behalf of South Warwickshire Patient Engagement, I'd like to thank you personally for the support that you've given to our group, which is greatly valued. So thank you for that. Just to follow up really again from Judy in a question to Mike. Last year, Mike, when you talked about the finances, you were fairly comfortable that your reserve position would see you through to the end of the contract, despite perhaps the Warwickshire County funding not being quite where you'd like it to be. Of course, since then, we've seen a deterioration of the general economic situation and very high inflation levels. Are you still comfortable that you'll get through the contract period without too much difficulty?
Yeah, I've got no worries about the contract period. I'm obviously very keen to ensure that we win the next contract. Another 3 to 5 years, I think, will be very important for Healthwatch, actually, because I think we're really gathering speed and doing very well. I think some of the things that have happened in the last year, other people have taken notice of, and it's been, I think, a very productive year, actually. We managed to give the staff a pay award that was around the sort of wages indexation this year, which I think we're quite pleased to be able to do. And I look forward to being able to do the same for next year, assuming the county council aren't too mean with their inflation funding. But we'll keep the pressure on them as we do. Every meeting.
I have no doubt that depends on central government support for local authorities. But yeah, good luck with that, Mike.
They've got problems with all of their service providers in that they do recognise that all of their service providers, whether it's for residential care or cleaning or anything else, they're going to need to have to fund something substantial this year. They do recognise that. And I think they're running around in circles trying to work out what it should be.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, David. We will continue to bear down on costs and do our bit to make sure that we remain financially stable going forward. But at the same time, we have to meet the needs of people out there. So it's a balance we continually have to strike.
Yeah. And
John,
looking after our staff at the same time.
Just a small point there, Mike. Just a small point. Quite right. John.
Yeah, thank you for the information that you're giving us in this meeting. And the thing that struck me from Chair's report is just how many different organisations there are, all of which are legal entities, and who is joining it up from the customer's point of view. And really, you're almost the only people. And it really is, it's not just sort of baffling, but I feel that, better use of cost effectiveness and quality could be achieved if we can get all the different health and care providers into a more unified system. But the question I'm coming around to is, in Chair's report, there was mention of the place boards and the delivery teams, and as I understand it, please correct me if I'm wrong, that the needs assessment, the joint strategic needs area assessments were carried out in 2019, and the place boards are then looking at that. But what actually is the delivery part of the place board?
Yeah, the delivery boards are the are the entities that actually the place board sets priorities, and the actual delivery on the ground is where the place delivery board should be working. So we go along to those place delivery boards to ensure that the voice of the patient is not lost in translation from the strategy down to the delivery on the ground. So I think the only way you are going to get a proper alignment between service provision and the needs of populations is to listen to those populations on a continuous basis and to respond to what you're hearing. And what we're going to do, what we do on those place delivery boards, we've been doing it for a little while now, is to hold them to account to make sure that they do align with what people are telling us they need. I mean, my big concern is one that you've had, John, is that there's a danger that without us there, it's the NHS talking to each other. And to be fair, the NHS have opened up to us really well, and they do listen and they do engage. So actually, I'm slightly more optimistic than you are about the future of the integrated care system. And I think if we continue on the path we are, we will become more and more integrated.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with people talking to each other. It's the people who don't talk to each other that are the problem. But they these delivery parts of the place boards don't actually deliver anything themselves, do they? Do they rely on other organisations, which are then separate legal entities who may or may not do it? Or am I again being pessimistic?
No, I think it is the actual providers who sit on the place delivery boards. Rather than, so providers and commissioners sitting together and talking about what needs to be actually delivered on the ground. That's what the place delivery boards are for.
No, thank you.
And we're going to make sure we continue to be part of that, to make sure that the patient voice continues to be heard in those very important frontline decisions. Is that all right, John?
Yeah. Yes,
Okay.
thank you. I've just got the problem of lowering my hand now. I've been struggling to find it.
Dilys.
Thank you.
I think you're muted, Dilys.
I am. Here we are. Yes. Many thanks to Liz for a really good report. I'm always worried about Liz because I thought she was going to have to stand down and just return to Mary Ann Hospice. But is she able to continue, which would be great?
Liz Hancock and I are in conversation, Dilys.
Right, you carry on. You keep talking, that's fine.
Thank you, Dilys. That's lovely to hear. I really appreciate that.
Keep talking.
Mike.
I was just going to add something for John Holland. The ICS are due to publish their health strategy on the 31st of December. And what I'm concerned about is whether that strategy has any relationship with the strategies of our various provider units.
Mm-hmm.
And bringing together the provider unit strategies with the commissioning strategy strikes me as being quite important. So between January and the end of March, I think there's a lot of work to be done to ensure that there's some, some comparison of those provider and commissioning strategies, and we'll see what they're like. But the ICS seems to be dragging its feet a bit and not, you don't see much progress, I have to say, John, which is a bit worrying. But maybe they'll, surprise us all and produce a wonderful healthcare commissioning strategy on the 31st of December. we'll all have to come into the office that day rather than prepare ourselves for our New Year celebrations. Thanks.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, the Integrated Care Partnership met this morning in person at Shire Hall. Caroline and I were both there. And some of the challenges you've identified about bringing all the various parts of the system together within a single strategy, I think were discussed in some detail. And there was some acknowledgement of exactly the challenges that you've identified. I mean, I couldn't help but intervene in that and talk about the need for proper engagement. But I think they do understand some of the complexities that you're picking out. And I have some optimism. What they did say was that the document that's going to be produced by the end of December is the beginning of a process rather than the end of one. And I think as they go forward, they will look to make it an iterative process so that it learns as it goes. And I don't think there's any other way of doing it, because the timetables are just too squeezed for me. Is there any other questions? In that case, Chair, if there's nothing else, we can close the meeting and thank everybody for their attendance and their support. If you do think of any questions that you wish you'd asked during this meeting, you've got your hand up, Jackie.
I think I'd just like to say that as a volunteer with Healthwatch and someone who's been involved in patient engagement since 1998, I would like to say that volunteers for organisations such as Healthwatch are absolutely vital in order to help them continue their work. And it leads volunteers into some very interesting arenas and some very interesting experiences and some very interesting stories. But I would like to say that of all the organisations I've encountered in all these years, I'd like to commend Healthwatch Warwickshire for the way that it does treat their volunteers and looks after their volunteers, because an organisation such as this one cannot function without a good system to enable volunteers to do the best they can. So well done, Healthwatch Warwickshire. I'm very proud to be associated with you. I love Healthwatch Warwickshire, and may it flourish in the next year. But thank you for the way that you look after your volunteers. I feel that it needed to be said.
Thank you, Jackie. That's very kind. I mean, our volunteers are the lifeblood of the organisation and we couldn't live without them. So thank you for that. Are there any other questions or points? Okay, well then I will close the meeting. Thank you for your attendance and your support. If there are any questions, as I say, please do get in touch and we'll see if we can clarify some points for you. So in the meantime, thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day and we'll see you again. Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye. Bye, Chris.